Hello everyone and a very warm welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we are going to learn about Ielts Writing Task 1. We are going to learn how to write a letter of resignation. This particular task 1 is meant for the general training student. That is because academic students write a report in their task 1. So if you're a general training student, this particular lesson is for you. Now, before we get into the question, I would like to give you a few tips that are extremely important when it comes to letter writing in your task 1. You should always spend 20 minutes to write your letter. Spend about 3 to 5 minutes planning and then the rest of the time writing. Always leave 2 minutes at the end to check your letter for spelling or grammar mistakes. You will need a full 40 minutes to write your task 2. So don't go over 20 minutes for task 1. Remember, it is your responsibility to control the time in your writing test. You are expected to write more than 150 words. You should always aim for between 160 and 180 words to be safe. So you are allowed to write more than 150 words. Your letter is worth 33% of your final writing score. You do not need to write an address on the letter. Pay close attention to who you're writing to and the relationship you have with that person, because this is going to determine your style of writing and your tone. Also, pay attention to the aim and the purpose of the letter. It is essential that you use the 3 points to structure your letter and provide the basis for the information. All points must be included clearly in your letter. If you fail to include all the points in your letter, your band score is going to be lower. You must use your imagination to fill in details and decide the names of the people in your letter. Always begin your letter by addressing the person and then an opening line, and always sign off appropriately. Now that I've given you some really helpful tips that are going to really help you to score a high band while you're writing your task 1, let's get into our question. The question is, you have decided to resign from your current job for further studies. A. Tell your boss of your decision and explain why you are leaving. B. Explain what you have learned from the current job and how you feel about leaving. And C. Ask for a letter of reference. So the first step is to make sure you understand the question. That is really the first step. Let's understand the question together. You have decided to resign from your current job. So you work somewhere and you want to stop working. And the reason is because you want to go for further studies. That means that you want to leave your job and go back to school, maybe go back to university, because you want to study further. Now, A, that is the first point. Tell your boss of your decision and explain why you're leaving. Now, this particular point has 2 parts. First, tell your boss of your decision, the decision that you have decided to resign from your current job. Then the second part of that particular first point is explain why you're leaving. So, you should tell your boss your decision about the fact that you want to resign and then explain why you're leaving. So Point A has 2 subpoints. And then B, explain what you have learned from your current job. That is the first point of that particular point B. And how you feel about leaving. So once more, we have 2 parts. Explain what you have learned from the current job and how you feel about leaving. And then C, ask for a letter of reference. So all in all, there are 5 points, five key points that we need to include in our letter. Point 1, tell your boss of your decision. Point 2, explain why you're leaving. Point 3, explain what you have learned from your current job. Point 4, explain how you feel about leaving. And the last point is ask for a letter of reference. It is extremely important that you identify all the subpoints that Ielts is expecting you to include in your letter. And we have identified 5 of them. Now that we have understood the question, which is the first step, then let's move on to the next step, and that is writing the actual letter. When it comes to writing the actual letter, there are 7 steps that we are going to follow. The first one is we are going to write the salutation. Dear Mr. Rupert. In this case, because it is your employer, it is where you work, you know the name of your boss. So you write that name in your salutation. Dear Mr. Rupert. And then use a comma at the end. Dear Mr. Rupert, comma. After that, you move on to the next step. And in the next step, the first thing we are going to do is we are going to explain why we are writing this letter. It is extremely important. Remember, this is a formal letter. So we begin. I am writing this letter. Okay, we always begin with that because you want to inform the person why you're writing the letter. I am writing this letter to inform you about my decision to resign from my current position as an accountant within your company with immediate effect. And by doing that, we have actually begun writing about the first point that Ielts tells us to include in our letter. That is A, tell your boss of your decision. Okay, tell your boss of your decision to resign. I am writing this letter to inform you about my decision to resign from my current position as an accountant with your company with immediate effect. Now, immediate effect means that you want to leave immediately. You want to leave as soon as possible. Okay, that is immediately. You want to leave immediately. Okay. So we have touched on the first part of the first point, that is tell your boss of your decision. And now we move on to the second part of the first point. A, explain why you're leaving. Explain why you're leaving. And now we begin that. This is due to the fact that, remember, due to the fact that simply means because. This is due to the fact that I would like to relocate to the United Kingdom, where I would like to do a master's in business administration. This is due to the fact that I would like to relocate to the United Kingdom, where I would like to do a master's in business administration. So in that part, I have responded to the second point in Ielts instructions. Explain why you're leaving. So the reason why you're leaving your job, it is because you would like to relocate. To relocate means you would like to move. You would like to migrate to the United Kingdom. And what are you going to do there? You would like to do a master's in business administration. So you have, in that first paragraph, you have already covered all the points that Ielts has instructed you to include in the first point A. And now we move on to the next paragraph. And in the next paragraph, we are going to make sure that we include information about Ielts point B. Explain what you have learned from your current job. That is the first part. So what have you learned from your current job? And now we are going to begin writing about that. I have learned so much the last 5 years that I have worked as an employee within your company. I have acquired a lot of analytical and organizational and organization skills. Okay, I have acquired a lot of analytical and organization skills. You have taught me how to manage time better, as well as spreadsheet proficiency skills. So in that paragraph, I have begun by explaining all the things that I have learned from that particular job, because Ielts instructs you in point B, explain what you have learned from your current job. So what have I learned from that job? I have acquired a lot of analytical and organization skills. I have also learned to manage time better, as well as spreadsheet proficiency skills. So I now need to include information about the second part of point B. Explain how you feel about leaving. So you have to do everything. You have to put in the information in order, okay? So the structure of your letter should be determined by the points, one point after another. So explain how you feel about leaving. How do you feel about leaving your job? And now the last sentence of the second paragraph. This makes it incredibly difficult for me to turn my back on a company that has molded me into the successful accountant that I am today. So how do I feel? This makes it incredibly difficult. So I find it incredibly, okay? I find it incredibly difficult to turn my back, okay? I find it incredibly difficult to leave the company. To turn your back is to leave something, okay? I find it incredibly difficult for me to turn my back on a company. So the reason why I find it really difficult to resign is because this particular company, it has molded me. Molded means that they have guided me. They have guided me to become the successful accountant that I am today. So in that second paragraph, I have responded to all the instructions that Ielts asked me to include in point B. Explain what you have learned from your current job. I have done that at the beginning of the paragraph. And then explain how you feel about leaving. I have explained that in the last sentence of paragraph 2. And now we move on to the third point, and that is ask for a letter of reference. Ask for a letter of reference. Now, we move on to the third paragraph where we are going to ask for a letter of reference. I would really appreciate it if you could write for me a reference letter that my university has requested in order to evaluate my professional and interpersonal skills. I would really appreciate it if you could write for me a reference letter that my university has requested in order to evaluate my professional and interpersonal skills. So in that third paragraph, I have asked for a letter of reference, okay? And I have explained a little bit about what that letter is all about. It is a letter that my university has requested. The university where I'm going to do a master's in business administration, they have requested for a letter, a reference letter from my current employer. And the reason for that is to evaluate my professional and interpersonal skills. So that gives your boss an idea of what to put in the reference letter so that he can help the university evaluate your professional and interpersonal skills. Now, we have already covered all the 3 key points that Ielts wants us to include in the letter. And now we move on to step 5, where you're going to write the conclusion. You're going to conclude this letter. Thank you for all the opportunities for growth and development that your company has provided me with as an employee of over the years. So you want to thank your boss, okay? Yes, it is a letter of resignation where you're informing your boss that you're going to leave the company. So it is very, very polite to end the letter by thanking him for giving you the chance to work there. Okay, so thank you for all the opportunities for growth and development that your company has provided me with as an employee over the years. Okay, so I'm thanking the boss for the opportunities. Opportunities are the chances he has given me for growth, to grow and to develop as an employee over the years. Now, once you have written the conclusion, which is step 5, then you move on to step 6, and that is where you sign off. Now, this is a formal letter. So we always sign formal letters with yours faithfully. Yours faithfully. And then don't forget that comma after faithfully. Okay? Yours faithfully, comma, Peter Chimes. Then the last step, that is step 7, is you write your full names. Okay? You write your full names. That is Peter Chimes. You write your full name and it is Peter Chimes. So, what have we done in this lesson? We have learned the steps that are extremely important when you're writing your task 1, which is your letter. Step 1, read the question and make sure you understand it. Step 2, identify all the points that Ielts needs you to include in the letter. And you noticed point A and B, actually, they have subpoints. They have 2 points. For example, A, the first point is tell your boss of your decision to resign. And then there is another point, explain why you're leaving. And then with B, you also have 2 points. Explain what you have learned from your current job. And then the next one, explain how you feel about leaving. So always make sure you identify the subpoints within the key point. Once you have done that, the next thing is to write the salutation. In this case, we wrote, Dear Mr. Rupert. And the reason we wrote the name Mr. Rupert is because it is your boss, you know his name. Always begin with dear. Dear Mr. Rupert. This is a formal letter. Once you have done that, then you write the introductory paragraph. In the introductory paragraph, always the first part, you inform the person what the letter is about. And in that particular first paragraph, we have included all the points, the subpoints in point A. Tell your boss of your decision and explain why you're leaving. All of that is covered in the first paragraph. In the second paragraph, we have covered all the points about B. Explain what you have learned from your current job. We did that at the beginning of the paragraph. And then in the rest of the paragraph, we explained how you feel about leaving. After that, we move on to the third point, and that is C. Ask for a letter of reference. We did that in the third paragraph, where we asked for the letter of reference, but also we informed the boss about what to include in the letter of reference. So we asked for a reference letter and we informed the person a little bit about what the reference letter is about. And then after that, you move on to step 5, where you write the conclusion of your letter. Okay? In this case, we thanked the boss for the opportunities that we have received for growth and development over the years where we have during the time that we have worked there. And then once you have done that, you move on to step 6. Step 6 is you sign off the letter. And because this is a formal letter, we sign off by saying yours faithfully. And don't forget the comma at the end of faithfully. And then once you have done that, then you move on to step 7, where you write your full names. Peter Chimes. So there you go. That's how you're supposed to answer this question. I have also given you some tips that should really help you to score a high band in your letter writing during your task 1, and also to make sure that you don't run out of time when you're writing your when you're doing your Ielts writing test. Remember, you should spend 20 minutes doing your task 1 and 40 minutes doing your task 2. Now, if you found this video helpful at all, please give the video a thumbs up. Share the video with somebody else. Help somebody else by sharing this video with them. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn your notification bell on so that you know when I upload a new video. Now, thank you very much, everyone, and I shall see you in our next lesson. Bye-bye.